With the expanding reach of the internet, the rapid transmission of mobile information, and the widespread use of social media, cyberviolence against women and girls has emerged as a pressing global issue, carrying significant economic and societal consequences. Research from the World Health Organization reveals that 1 in 3 women will experience violence at some point in their lives. Despite the relatively recent development of internet connectivity, cyberviolence has already victimized 1 in 10 women since the age of 15. Ensuring a safe and empowering digital public space is crucial for everyone, particularly women and girls. Access to the internet is rapidly becoming essential for economic well-being and is increasingly recognized as a fundamental human right. Therefore, addressing a gender-based cyberviolence is of utmost importance. We proudly present this podcast made possible through Traced, a 2-year project launched in March 2022 and concluding in February 2024. Traced is an EU-funded program implemented in Greece, Cyprus, Italy, and Slovenia. Its primary objective is to combat gender-based cyberviolence, targeting girls aged 7 to 18 and women aged 18 to 25. Let's join forces to tackle gender-based cyberviolence together.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our podcast series for Traced, brought to you by Codeca, the Center for Social Cohesion, Development and Care, where adolescent girls and young women can learn how to tackle cyber gender-based violence. So today we have an interesting subject matter, the psychology behind cyber violence. And today joining me for the discussion is Ms. Chryso Frangoudi. Chryso is a clinical psychologist. Welcome, it's great to have you here with us today.
Nice to be here.
So Chryso, tell us a little bit about the psychology behind cyber violence.
Okay, so I think it's important to start by mentioning that there are 3 categories involved in cyberbullying. There are the victims, the perpetrators, and to a lesser extent, adolescents that are both a victim and a perpetrator. I think it's important that to have it in mind when we are talking about the psychology. And we need to take into consideration that cyberbullying can be performed in absolute anonymity, making it easier to act aggressively through fake emails, accounts, text messages, and posts, because the cyberspace separates the perpetrator and the victim physically, where this has less chances for the perpetrator to feel remorse about his actions or even empathy towards the victim, because there is this physical distance.
Okay.
I read something really interesting. I would like to mention it, that the cyberspace is where events remain unreal. However, for the victim, they are very much real. Yes. Cyberbullying perpetrators are rarely confronted with behavior consequences. And I'm talking regarding the traditional, let's call it, bullying.
Okay.
Because many children, adolescents use their computers or smartphones without any supervision by parents and teachers. It's very difficult to know what is happening there. And it can be practiced anytime, everywhere, without being restricted to specific environments. So in a sense, cyberbullying doesn't stop once someone is at his house.
So it can continue offline.
Exactly. Not only offline, but it can be at all times, because now we have our laptops or phones all the times with us. So it can continue day and night. And the exposure to that is even bigger, and the embarrassment, because even if you remove yourself from this space, still the content is up there.
And there are, from what I understand, especially the younger generation think that their information or their personal data or their photos, I don't know if they know that once everything is online, it stays online.
Yes, and it's very easy nowadays. I mean, with all this digital content to be transmitted and to be exposed in a sense. Okay, that's why it's very important to raise awareness and educate adolescents about the safe use of internet. But let's go back to the psychology of the perpetrator. Actually, what I've read and the findings are quite inconsistent.
Okay.
There are some studies that show that perpetrators have either higher self-esteem and others that show that they have lower self-esteem than uninvolved individuals. Also, often they do not perceive their own behavior as harassing, and they do not recognize the impact of their behavior to the victim because they cannot see or hear the impact of their actions. They are behind a screen. And on the other hand, perpetrators, they experience higher level of stress, depression and anxiety than those that are uninvolved in cyberviolence.
How is that linked, though? I mean, somebody who has depression and has high levels of anxiety and stress, you would often assume that they wouldn't be a perpetrator, they would be a victim.
Yes, very correct. But the reality is that these adolescents have difficulty recognizing and regulating their emotions.
Okay.
So what they do is that they find a mean through the internet to channel these unregulated emotions to another subject, which is usually the victim of these unregulated emotions and feelings.
Is there a way to sort of profile a perpetrator, or can you not define it? Say you're in a classroom or in a public space.
So usually perpetrators have an aggressive behavior or a dysfunctional coping strategy to regulate unpleasant emotional state. So when something happens that makes them angry or feeling frustrated, it's very difficult for them to handle it. Also, they have studies show that they have lower perceived social support from families and peer groups. So usually they could be isolated.
Okay.
And generally, these people that they put this embarrassing content for other people in the internet, they have a sense of like their victims have no value. They devaluate their victims, and that reflects basically their own self-worth and self-respect. It's because they don't feel worthy, and then again they project this to the other people, and they have lack of empathy, as I said before, and social skills. So these are some traits that a perpetrator could have in order, let's say, to identify
and see who the perpetrator is. I have another question for you. Can a victim turn into a perpetrator?
Yes, and that's why I distincted at the beginning that it can be both victim and perpetrator, because a victim can later on become a perpetrator. Okay, we see it less often, but it can happen still. And usually it's all these feelings that I mentioned before. You start to feel less worthy, your self-value is decreasing, you start to feel anxious and depressed, and you want to somehow, communicate this. And if you don't have the support from the family, your friends, etc., then you find other ways that usually are non-healthy behaviors to deal with this kind of stressors, for example.
How would you work with a perpetrator?
Well, usually when you are working with this kind of, adolescents in the work field, one might think that, okay, they are the bad guys. How can I deal with this? Or maybe our own experience sometimes get in the way. But I think it's important to remember that, it's not easy dealing with perpetrators. But at the end, if we look behind what appears, we will see a very an isolated person, a very lonely person. And I think it's a core state, loneliness in cyber violence. So it might look difficult to have sympathy for a bully, but if we can all keep in our mind that victims and bullies are sometimes one and the same, I think you can have some kind of empathy for them and start to work with them in the sense of, okay, what is in the core of this? Why?
Another question that just came to mind is, what are the key signs in identifying a perpetrator? And through your trait, have you worked with people like this? What are the results? Do you think it is mostly family oriented? Do you think it is growing up? Is it the background, the social background, the environment at school that causes all these reactions for somebody to actually bully or harass someone else online? And also, how do they choose their victims is my question.
Okay, a lot of questions.
A lot of questions.
Okay, so let's start by saying that most of the things that you mentioned could be a reason. But the reality is that, internet and cyberspace and online use and everything is so open for all of us now. Usually the signs to identify a perpetrator is feelings of narcissism. They are usually narcissists. They don't have a they're moral disengagement in their behavior. There's no self-efficiency. They don't take into consideration social norms. They might even have there's substance abuse. And all these are risk factors that increase the likelihood of a person becoming a cyberbullying. For example, if I want to be more specific, if we see a person that every time we get near him and while he's on the screen, he will close down the screen of his computer. Or if they use a computer late at nights, or they are extremely unhappy and nervous while they are using their computers, or they suddenly laugh, or they avoid talking about what they do with their phones or computers, etc. That should alarm us in some way. These behaviors can match also to a victim as well, not just a perpetrator. So it's some behaviors that they need to alarm us. And families, health staff, teachers, all involved in the life of a child should be able and pay attention and define the ones that they might look upset or angry, or they stay away from their friends and they are isolated from social activities. Maybe they decline some school performances, their grades may be lower than before. They even experience and are exposed to physical violence as well.
Okay.
All these are signs of a person that could be, a perpetrator. It doesn't mean that it is. Yes. So it could be. It could be either a victim or both, as we said before. And actually, I've read some studies that they go into more specific, like in traits. For example, they've shown that older ages was a significant predictor of becoming a cyberbullying. This could be a result of older children having more access to social media opportunities, or that they are more, trained or friendly with this, with the media, and they don't have so much the supervision of parents or teachers.
Yeah, but if you take it, in our day and age, we didn't have as much access to the internet as they do, but we still had bullies around. It's not that something... It's different. It's just taken into a whole different dimension. It's online.
Yeah, and that's why it's more widespread, because, as I said before, you have the anonymity, you don't have the supervision, and in that sense, yes, it could be considered more serious than traditional, let's say, bullying, than cyberbullying.
What would your advice be to someone who is being harassed or bullied online, and do you think they should talk to somebody Do you think they should mention it? And would there be any consequences to that person from the perpetrator if they find out?
Consequences usually is the reason people don't talk about it. Because of fear, because of, I don't know, maybe the perpetrator is threatening them in some way. So usually this is the reason children don't talk about, or even maybe they are afraid that they will remove their, I don't know, they will take their phones away or their PCs, laptops, whatever. I think the most important, there are a lot of things that we can do, but the most important is to help children, I mean, from a very young age, to develop socio-emotional skills, to show them how, I mean, empathy, emotional regulation, to be able to express their emotions and recognize their emotions. This is a key role to the dynamics of cyberbullying. It can start from the family. I mean, parents became the model of those behaviors to their children, and then it's a system. I mean, afterwards it's the school, it's the society, it's the state. So all the stakeholders, let's call them, I mean, involved, should take actions on this. For example, if I want to start, let's say, families should start to regulate the time children spend using the internet, or restrict some sites in that sense. They should be aware and supervise them, not let them, I mean, being hours in their room using their computer without supervision.
Do you think that, I'm sorry for interrupting, do you think that this generation, because we used to play outside, we used to become innovative in many senses. We used to make up games. We used to run around, play on our bikes. Do you think that this generation is condemned to this thing because of the new state of affairs?
Yeah, and I think it's getting worse, if I can say. That's why we need to pay attention now on this. We will never stop having access to internet. I mean, it's only getting more accessible to us in a sense. So yes, I mean, it's very important to start paying attention on what is happening. And I think in Cyprus we are not so much aware yet of the situation. I mean, all the studies that I found are usually from, I mean, abroad. So we need to have awareness programs in schools, educate youth and especially girls and women on this new dimension of cybercrime.
It's true what you said. I'm going to elaborate a little bit on that. In Cyprus, from what I understand, by working on this project for the past few months now, is that we are a closed community. And even though we do know that things are happening and people are starting to speak up, it's still something that is of a taboo, because everybody knows everybody. And people don't want to get exposed. They don't want their children to be exposed. However, what you said about educating, especially youth and young children, it's good for everybody to know. And therefore, it would be a good chance to raise awareness and also have subject matters in school and have professionals like yourselves in schools. If incidents do happen, it would be wise to have professionals in schools who can handle such situations. What do you think on this?
Well, theoretically, there are psychologists in school, but not enough. I mean, it's one psychologist for, 30 schools. It's not enough.
No, it's not enough.
Yes. So in that sense, the state also has to get involved in this and have psychologists more accessible to schools for use. But again, there is also this stigma going to psychologists. I mean, still in our society carries a stigma. What people will say, if they see me going there, they will say my child is crazy. And I mean, all these stereotypes that come with, pay a visit to a psychologist. So I think also awareness should not be limited to youth, but also to parents and the society in general. I mean, it's something new that we all need to be informed and being aware of.
It is something new. Maybe for other European member states, not so new, because we're talking about larger populations, bigger countries.
And actually, there are acts and laws and conventions about human rights that we just maybe need to, broaden them in a sense that we can use these tools and establish them in our, in the state should establish them in some way.
I think because I know about the Convention of the Rights of the Child, children are protected by law under the UN Convention until the age of 18. So what we can do or suggest is maybe the children need to know their rights. And we're not just talking about girls anymore. We're talking about everybody, boys and girls, because boys are getting bullied as well. Girls are getting bullied, even though this is a gender-based project and it's focusing on girls and young women. From the research that we conducted, the more responses we got were from boys. I'm going to be very honest with you. So maybe we can integrate the UN Convention's articles into schools, because I know that there are children's versions of these laws. So what do you think? How do you think we should, what would your suggestion be on how to prevent future incidents?
Well, it's all this together. I mean, it is not just a set of action in a specific place like in school. I mean, it's the house, it's the school, it's the society, it's the state. It all should come together. Okay, we are talking about social media like it's only a bad thing, but at the same time, we have all these movements going on, like the Me Too, the hashtag Me Too and all this, that they inspire reflection and awareness on, I mean, all these matters. So it's mostly like a collaboration. I don't know, families, teachers, training staff, officers, anybody should be trained and aware of this new cyber violence.
Just a final question for you. Do you think that victims should be afraid of reporting any incidents that may occur? Because there seems to be a notion that they're holding back.
Yeah,
and that is why it's not so much out there yet.
But I don't think it's a question of should or shouldn't. I think that it's clear. The thing is why they are afraid. And this is what we need to tackle. Why they are afraid to report it. Is it because they don't have a good relationship with their parents and there is no communication and they are afraid? Is it because it's happening in the school setting, or is it because they feel that they've done something wrong and they deserve this and that they should be blamed for this? I mean, it's not just a thing, it's not one thing, but yes, they should. The thing is to empower them in order to report it.
Okay. Well, thank you very, very much for all of your insight. This was a very interesting conversation. I think it can go on for a very long time. There are many questions still to be answered. And everybody, remember, it's always good to report any incidents that may occur to you or your friends or your loved ones, your brothers and sisters. So please have that in mind. Chryso, thank you very much again for joining us today.
Thank you so
much. And if you are interested in the Trace project, please go onto our social media, our website, Instagram, Facebook, and also the Trace platform. Thank you very much from myself once again. Have a good day.